Hi investigators, Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. Turning off my air conditioning so you can't hear it and it doesn't interfere with our program. Last week, people, I made a really funny meme, and it was a video meme with knocking on heaven's door about CTP liability claimants, and basically it was hilarious. I mean, I was just so funny with that meme. And Facebook and YouTube banned me. They gave me a copyright strike for that. Now, you might be saying, I wonder why they did that. Well, people, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. And we are about to get into Spy Curious, episode 132. Here we go. So this week, I got a lovely email, a couple of really good ones today, one about mutual recognition and one about what's happening in the government investigation and fraud control space. And here's the government investigation one that I just got about an hour ago. Hi, Mike. Hope all is well. Thanks for providing such a great course. Thanks for that. FYI, I've just been watching How to Fix a Drug Scandal on Netflix. Got me thinking of the Record of Interview. There are a few examples of the masochistic Massachusetts state troopers doing interviews that were interesting. I better get back to nabbing fraudsters. Love this job with, I can't say it because that's his government department that's crossed out there. A few organised fraud syndicates have hit us with COVID and other grants, and now we have the Strike Force Sainsbury New South Wales Police helping us. So that's an interesting one. The fraud syndicates become organised in ripping off the government. You've just seen it from a person that investigates that. So they're going to end up in court. There's one of my favourite photos I ever got from the Supreme Court of Victoria when I gave evidence there one day. So they'll end up charging those people with fraud in court in relation to what happened and what they ripped off. Here's one of my favourite photos of a couple of barristers having a cup of coffee outside the County Court of Victoria. So when you go to court and you're going to give evidence against someone, they're going to have a defence, and that defence is going to be a barrister. The barrister's role is to destroy your credibility. Hi, I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy, and I'm about to go and give evidence and be cross-examined in the Supreme Court of Victoria. I can't wait. It's a criminal matter and the guy's a crook. How good is that? And that's how we all feel about going to court and giving out evidence when someone's committed fraud. What does it look like when we come out? Here we go. Oh, that didn't go very well at all. I was in the witness box for 90 seconds. I can't remember my name. I can't remember if I helped the case or I stuffed it up. What am I going to do? Oh, my God, where's my tally hose? That's how you feel when you come out of the witness box, because you have just had a very serious hiding. And Kelly's saying hello, and g'day Renee, g'day George, g'day Jamie, g'day Kelly. If you're watching this replay, people, g'day to you all. We hope you enjoy this episode of Spy Curious about mutual recognition and going to court. So we've just seen Mike Evans get an absolute pasting in the witness box. I've got to come back to this one. Well, that didn't work out very well, did it? Let's have a look at how we can ensure that we're best protected when we give evidence in the witness box under cross-examination from barristers who are using tactics to destroy your credibility as a witness. Barristers go to law school and practice, destroying you, the honest licensed private investigator or the honest law-abiding government investigator, in the witness box. They have several tactics with which they do that. If you understand what the tactics are, in any kind of setting, doesn't matter whether it's a business, government, court, or military, whatever the tactic is, and if it's perceived, its value is lost. So let's have a look at the first tactic they use when cross-examining you in court when you're in the witness box. So the first tactic is rapid-fire questions. You're in the witness box, you're sworn in under oath, and suddenly they're hitting you with who, what, where, why, how, bang, question after question after question. That is the tactic. So the purpose is to confuse the witness. It's an attempt to elicit inconsistent answers. What you've got to do when you have that tactic is you wait. You hold on. You control the pace. Time doesn't matter. You don't have to go at the same pace as that barrister. They ask you a question. You listen to it. You think about what your answer is going to be. And you go, yes. They ask you another question that's rapid, coming at you with them staring in your face. And you go, no. So time doesn't matter. If they're getting a real gallop up and they're hitting you question after question after question, ask them to repeat it. Pat Flynn, who you're all familiar with, he uses tissues. But when he goes to court, he has a handkerchief in his pocket. It's more dramatic. So when he's getting hit by question after question after, Pat will pull out his handkerchief. He'll say, excuse me. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? And that's how he lets them know, I'm not falling for the bait. Okay, so that's tactic number one. Tactic number two, condescending. So you're in the witness box, you're sworn in under oath, and they start going, oh, how are you today? Sorry to have you in this witness box asking all these questions. They're trying to act like they're nice. And the purpose is to imply that the witness is inept, lacks confidence, and may be unreliable. So your reaction to this is firm, decisive answers. Yes, no, I don't know. All right, so that's what you do. If they say, oh, witness, are you getting confused? Are you suffering any illnesses? Don't fall for it, right? You don't have to fall for the bait. So thanks, Evan. I appreciate you. Please me. Try blowing your nose in front of 7,000 people. It's not a nice experience. So, all right, so that's our next tactic. We'll go on to number 3. Mispronouncing the witness's name. This is the one thing we've had all our life, people. We like our name to be done correctly. If your name's Mather or Marshall or whatever, they'll say Marsden. And while you're thinking about that, they're trying to make you confused. So you'll give errors in your testimony. So ignore the mispronunciation of your name. Concentrate on the question. I've got a niece, her name's Venetia. I've got another niece, her name's Zena. When they go and order coffee, I think they call themselves Susan and Jane or something. So look, let go of your name when you're in court. It's just like ordering coffee if it's too hard for the person who's behind the counter to spell Venetia. Venetia. I don't know how to do it either. My favourite. They'd start being friendly. Now, what they're doing here is they're setting you up to put the knife between your shoulder blades. They're trying to act like they're nice. And you're thinking, Mike Evans told me that these people are evil and not nice. And they're trying to lull you into a false sense of security. So you'll give favourable answers to them. They're trying to open you to be wide open. Remain alert. All right. Their purpose in the defence is to diminish your evidence and destroy your credibility. So don't sucker for that one. Few more to go. The Victorian exclusive. This one you'll only hear in Victoria, and it will reply to every answer you give in the witness box, and they will shout it out. They'll say, not good enough. They yell it to every response that you give, and they stand there with their hands on their hips aggressively. They want to confuse and rattle you, and they want you to think that you have to give more lengthy answers than you have been, and you're there going, oh, I don't know what to do. So limit your answers as much as possible to yes, no, and I don't know. And you destroy the not good enough tactic. By now, this barrister is starting to realise that they've only got 3 tactics left. Well, this one is staring. Now, this is a game you played with your brothers and sisters and cousins in the back of the car on long trips. The first one to talk loses. So they ask you a question, you give an answer, and then they stare at you. Now, you kicked your brothers, sisters, and cousins' ass in this game. You didn't lose when you did it in the back of the car, so why should you fall for it in court? They're trying to provoke you into giving more information just by staring at you. Ignore it. Don't take the bait. Wait for the next question. This guy's laying down and going to sleep while the barrister's got her arms crossed and staring. Who cares? We can wait all day. You control the pace in the witness box. The barrister cross-examining you does not control the pace. You do by listening to the question, thinking about it. I'm sorry, could you repeat it? So you're a human being, right? You don't have to know and understand complex questions, sometimes confusing, from eminently qualified barristers who get paid 14 grand a day. Okay, don't fall for that tactic. Demanding a yes or no answer to a question that cannot be answered yes or no. It's a tactic. Did you caution the defendant at the time you suspected he committed the offence? Is one they rattle at police officers. Yes or no? Now, what they're trying to do here is prevent other relevant and mitigating circumstances being considered by the court. You might go to try and explain and they'll say yes or no. So what you do is you just wait and say, I cannot answer that question, yes or no, and pause. The more you pause, the more you take the time, the more chance that they'll suddenly burst into flames, right? And they're trying to upset you. But if you're being calm and you're listening and you're considering your answers, it negates every tactic that they have under cross-examination. Reversing the witness's words. Now, this is a classic they use all the time. So an example is the spillage occurred 15 metres from the car park, and the council says 51 metres. The purpose is to confuse the witness and demonstrate a lack of confidence in the witness. Now, this will come to conversations, distances, weights, times, all that sort of thing. So listen, and if they try and reverse it, correct them straight away. Say, no, that's not right. It was 15 metres, not 51 metres. You can stand up for yourself in court. So they are just 8 cross-examination tactics that are going to help you when you go into court. I hope you enjoyed them. We've got some jobs. Let's have a look at this week's job vacancies. Brookside seeking licensed investigators in Melbourne and Victoria for general insurance investigations, so are NJM. Procare and Kerrigan's are still chasing factual investigators all around the country. Qantas have available a great principal investigation assurance job. Up in Queensland, RACQ, you have a corporate investigation job, which you will not need a licence for. So you're working internally for the RACQ. So that's a great opportunity at that job. Home Affairs down in Victoria are seeking senior investigators with several positions, and they'll want you to have a certificate for in government investigation. That's really important. Sorry, that's not a job, that's a tender. Multiple roles for the Brisbane City Council. When you go and work as an investigator at the Brisbane City Council, your boss holds 3 Australian Security Academy qualifications. So keep that in mind. Good day, Chris. How are you going down in South Australia, mate? You have reminded me what I've got to do next. So because Chris Goodrich is watching, we'll get straight into it. We do apologise for Casey not being here this week, people. She's unwell, has been since the end of the program last week. She'll be back next week. She's getting better as we go. So here we go. This came up and it sort of appeared on Facebook. The Australian Institute of Professional Investigators South Australian chapter put up a post saying automatic mutual recognition is disappointing the other states don't follow the same approach as South Australia. Now, South Australia Licensing Authority have adopted automatic mutual recognition. Now, that doesn't surprise me because most states have. They just haven't told you about it. So what is it? It's a federal commitment to licensed occupations that you can travel interstate if required and be licensed in that second state if you follow that second state's rules. Now, this could affect security guards, jockeys, real estate agents, people that blow things up with dynamite in mines. That's endless. There's lots of occupations that have to be licensed. Private investigators is one. Security is another. They're the ones that people watching this are familiar with. So what South Australia have done is at the AIPI down there, they've said, well, it's disappointing the other states don't do it. What is mutual recognition? What it's all about? What was the question I was asked today? Let's have a look at that and see if we can't look at some of the issues around it. It's here somewhere. Here's the question I got in relation to it today. Had a really good question come through today in relation to mutual recognition between the states and an observation that South Australia was moving to recognise qualifications interstate and licences interstate without further cost. So let's have a look at the question I got asked. Good old South Australia. Hope you're enjoying eating all those crows, people. We are aware that South Australia recently introduced a program where they will recognise all interstate investigator licences without the need for full mutual recognition or exorbitant fee processes. Okay. Do you have a table list guide that sets out the recognition process between each of the states? What a great question. And in every state and territory except the ACT, where they don't have licensing and anybody can set themselves up to be a private investigator, the requirements vary in relation to becoming a licensed private investigator. The only similarity is they all have to have CPP 30619, Certificate 3 in Investigative Services, as their qualification. Now, the units vary between the states. That's called separation of powers. It's also called, we have different words and different things in different states. So let's have a look at it. So with mutual recognition, the downfall of it is the state where I live, Queensland. Queensland is for, how could I describe it, the purposes of training and assessment in security or investigations is like a tax haven for crooks. You set yourself up as an RTO in Queensland and you can get away with murder through mutual recognition for licensing in other states. Queensland's Office of Fair Trading does no checking whatsoever on the quality of training and assessment for courses, and neither does the regulator ASQA. It's a free-for-all in Queensland to do whatever you like. Now, the opposite of that is in Victoria. In Victoria, you must be approved by the Licensing Regulation Authority to train and assess in Certificate 3 in investigative services. And if you're not approved and you don't have approved trainers and you put yourself up as having been approved or having some kind of arrangement with a Victorian RTO that is approved and the LRD, the Licensing Authority, don't know about it, then you are committing fraud. And it doesn't matter whether you reside in Queensland and you do that, or in New South Wales and you do that. The Victorian Police LRD will follow that through and charge you with fraud, and you're facing 10 years imprisonment for doing so. So it's a bit of a strange situation that between all the states with one regulator for training and assessment, ASQA, and multiple regulators for licensing. So in Queensland, it's the Office of Fair Trading. In Victoria, it's the Victorian Police Licensing Regulation Division. In South Australia, it's Consumer Affairs. All these organisations have different viewpoints and different applications. Just like Potato Cake and Potato Scholar. So where the AIPI have got it wrong is every other state except Queensland has signed in and is doing mutual recognition without cost and just a slight application. They've all signed up. Queensland's the only one that hasn't. What does that mean? That means exactly what I said. The regulators in Queensland don't know what they're doing. They couldn't give us stuff, and they don't regulate it. And what upsets the people and the regulators down in Victoria and Western Australia and South Australia and Tasmania, New South Wales doesn't care. It's free for all in New South Wales in relation to licensing is Queensland can have the crappiest course. The RTO can take payment, do no training, give the person a certificate, and suddenly they've got a Queensland licence and a New South Wales licence. And they couldn't take a statement, conduct surveillance, or write a report, courtesy of Queensland and the system, and regulators not regulating. So that's why there's been a lot of resistance to it. But ironically, Queensland is the only state that hasn't signed up for this mutual recognition. There is one further video. You must have a look at this to understand why you might need a licence in another state.
One of my most frequently asked questions is, should I get a private investigator's licence in every state and territory in Australia? The type of clients you have and the type of investigations you do will dictate what you need to do in relation to investigations and what states you're required to be licensed in. For most people, they will only require being licensed in one state because that is where they will do most of their work. However, if you live on the border of certain areas in Australia, you may need to get a licence in 2 states. Here's an example.
Where you are likely to need a licence in 2 states in Australia are the following places. On the border of New South Wales and Queensland at Tweed Heads, where the population of Tweed Heads is 89,000 people. It's right next to the Gold Coast where the population is 528,000 people in another state. In the Albury-Wodonga region of Victoria and New South Wales, I would include in this Canberra as well, you would need a dual licence. Albury-Wodonga alone's population is 104,000 people. In the Mildura area, you'd need a dual licence. It's on the border of New South Wales and Victoria. The population there is 66,000. I would include that in Horsham, you would need a South Australian licence as well. It really gets interesting if you look at Popel's Corner in Australia, where the border of 1 territory and 2 states meet. The population there is 0 people, but lots of kangaroos, dingoes, flies, camels, emus, and snakes. I've actually done an investigation at Popple's Corner. It's right here in the Simpson Desert. It's where three time zones meet, and it's the corner of the boundaries of Queensland, South Australia and Northern Territories.
I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy.
So, what do you do about a licence when you're standing at the point where two states and a territory meet? And the accident happened here, but the vehicle got pushed over there and the person fell out over there. There's three ways to go through states. I don't think that if something got that complicated, there'd be a really big issue about it. So the situation is, if you want a permanent licence in a second state, if you're on the Tweed Heads, all right, or if you're at Horsham, or if you're down in that Victorian border with the places that were named in that video, you can get a permanent licence in another state through mutual recognition by applying through the form and paying the licence fee of 1, 2 or 3 years. You can. And I know people that have got a licence in every state and territory in Australia. They own investigation agencies and they do that. That's what they do. They have a licence in Tasmania and New South Wales because they win tenders and the tender requires them to be licensed there for QBE or Allianz or Suncorp Metmate or whatever. So that's why they do that. So the situations that you've seen me talking about, and Jamie said before, this should lead, in the comments, he said, this should lead to national licensing to solve all those issues. Well, we're never going to solve those issues when you have rogue states like Queensland that don't regulate, don't check, where you can hide out as a crooked RTO and pretend that your security certificates that you issue are real when the recipients of them have just given you money, haven't studied any course, don't know what they're doing, and immediately go and get a security licence in New South Wales or South Australia. Well, it's not going to happen. Until that's sorted out, then we can look at national licensing, all right? So there's a lot of work to do, and it may happen. It just may happen. So I've told you that if you live in those border areas, get a permanent licence for 1, 2 or 3 years. If you own an RTO that wins, an investigation agency that wins tenders for insurance companies or for loss adjusters, get a licence in every state. Now, what happens, what's the intent of this new program? How much does it cost? And what does it really work? And why were the AIPI in South Australia wrong? Here we go.
Applying for mutual recognition of your investigation licence in South Australia has never been easier. The new Automatic Mutual Recognition AMR rules that came in on the 1st of February 2022 in SA state that if you are fully licensed in participating states or territories, you can operate in South Australia using that license so long as you notify the CBS via an online form. This is with the exception of Queensland, who are not currently taking part in the Australia-wide effort to help states minimise the red tape around certain licensed industries. All other states and territories are taking part in this initiative, with Western Australia to commence July 1st, 2022, although the CBS already seemed to be recognising WA in the scheme. So in South Australia, you can skip the usual mutual recognition forms and save yourself $626.50 in the process.
So it's happening. So I'm a licensed private investigator in a state. If I get time during the next week, I'll apply for mutual recognition in South Australia. Now, as Casey's just pointed out, this isn't a permanent carte blanche free pass. It's you knowing that you've got to go to South Australia to interview someone whose camper van, which is worth $300,000, was involved in an accident, and you've got to go down there because it's insured by the RACQ in Queensland. So you write to the South Australian Licensing Regulatory Authority, fill out their form, and they will allow you to go down there, not on a permanent basis. How long? We don't know, because they will write back to you when they approve it and they will tell you the time there. If you move permanently to South Australia, you will have to get a 1, 2 or 3 year licence and pay for it. If you just want to visit it, it's free and you're mutually recognised. Same with Victoria. You can visit it and you might do 3 psychological injury issues down there for workers' compensation emanating out of Brisbane if you're a licensed Queensland investigator over 2 weeks, all right? And you will have a time frame issued to you for that mutual recognition. It might be 6 months, it might be 1 day, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens as the information filters through, because this has only happened 1st of February, as Casey said. So you can get free, no cost, mutual recognition in every state and territory except ACT and Queensland, who, as I pointed out, don't regulate, don't know what's going on, have no idea, and ASQA doesn't enforce it, so they just allow it to run, okay? And all they need to do is just have one security training issue in Queensland, sort that out, then they'll all get into line very quickly, but they don't. Why? You'd have to ask them. I don't know. So, good news, people. If you've got to go interstate for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, whatever, apply for that mutual recognition and it will be free. No extra cost. Busy at work in Melbourne, want education and training teach. They want people to investigate issues with apprentices and trainees. So someone signs an apprenticeship to be a hairdresser for 3 years and an issue comes up, and what Busy at Work's role is, the investigator goes out, interviews the trainee or apprentice, interviews the workplace and assists them with compliance and sorting out what the issue is or finding a new workplace or whatever that may be. You'll need a certificate for in government investigation. There was a Victorian investigator for the Department of Education received a phone call one day, and he answered it, and there was a pig farmer on the other end of the phone. The pig farmer said, you better come down and have a talk to this apprentice. He's knocking off my pigs. So the investigator drove all the way down past Geelong and went and interviewed, sat down with the employer of the pig farm and got his statement pen out and his statement paper. It was a long time ago. He said, all right, tell me about it. How many pigs has this guy stolen? The pig farmer looked back at him and said, mate, he didn't steal any pigs. I said he was knocking off my pigs. That investigator had to have that trainee sitting in his car with him as he drove him back to Geelong. Lost his job over it, the trainee. Interesting times being an investigator. The Victorian Attorney General's office is looking for a manager of investigations down there. This is one I haven't heard of for years. Department of Social Services, DSS, are looking for a principal investigator in ACT, Victoria, New South Wales, Darwin, Perth, Western Australia, South Australia, Queensland and Hobart. So what a great opportunity to work with the Department of Social Services as an investigator. That's multiple roles. Need a certificate for in government investigation there, people. Papua New Guinea Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, New South Wales, I guess. They're looking for investigators there as well. What a great opportunity. Compliance investigators for the Department of Transport down in Melbourne. ProCare after a licensed investigator in Launceston, Tasmania. Administrative investigators for the AFP. So if you want to investigate plastics, you can go and do that with the AFP. All these jobs, people, if you're looking for where you can find more information about these jobs, they're on our Facebook page. So that is the Australian Corporate Government and Private Investigation page, where we put up 30% of the available jobs that I've just shown you. So if you subscribe to that page, you'll be kept informed just about on a daily basis of what job opportunities are coming up for licensed private investigators, government investigators and factual investigators. Brookside are really hammering the advertising for licensed investigators in Melbourne. Get in touch with them. You might think, oh, I haven't got any experience, and they've said experience in their advertisement. Well, why have they been advertising it for 4 weeks in a row? It's time you, the licensed investigator, stepped up, got in contact with them and started a dialogue, because they have internal training programs. You hold the license, you hold the certificate, you've studied under Pat Flynn, doesn't get any better than that, people. Will not get any better than that. So be confident when you apply for these positions that are advertised. So a lot of positions for private investigators, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney at the moment, ProCare, Brookside, MJM, Kerrigan's, they're all advertising for people. Get in touch with them. Get on this Facebook page. Tell them that you're a member of an industry association. They want to hear that, because general insurance at Allianz and Suncorp Metway, you have to be a member of an industry association. At the Australian Security Academy, you're an automatic member of an industry. You don't have to pay $200 a year like suckers do. When you study at the Australian Security Academy, you become a member for free of an industry association, which meets next week at 12:30 p.m. next Friday, 4th of March. And we will be doing our CPD program for complex statement taking for cognitive interview and the peace model. Now, you'll hear people say, oh, that's only a policing. That's how they interview witnesses for murders and bank robberies. No, it's not. I use cognitive interviews, the high value truck rollovers, and the witness might have been behind that truck for 600 metres, and the accident took 4 seconds to happen. And I will go through a cognitive interview with that witness that will end up being a 6-page statement in relation to it. Pat Flynn and I will show you how next week. If you're a member of the Australian Security Academy and AirLab, don't miss it. You'll receive a certificate of attendance and your CPD points. So this isn't a badge, electronic badge. This is a certificate of attendance that says you actually attended the continuous professional development. And with all our continuous professional development, it's not just you sat there and watched and listened and then went and made a cup of coffee halfway through it, or was on the phone talking to Granny. You were there and you completed an assessment. This is real CPD. It's not just watching. That's crap. That's 1952, how I learnt in primary school. What you do is you participate in it. You do an assessment on it. You're deemed competent at it, and you're awarded your CPD points for that. Just for watching, I go to the footy and I watch. Doesn't mean I can play footy, right? So these are real CPD points. This is real stuff that employers want you to see. That's why Allianz, Suncorp, Metway, QBE ask you to be a member of an industry association. Not for watching, but for participating, taking on the assessments and being part of it. So people, apologise for Casey not being here this week. She is getting better. It's been a pretty tough week for Casey with her illness, but she put that video together today valiantly, which is really valuable video. For those of you who are watching the replay, you can replay any part of this, the jobs, the videos, what I said about mutual recognition, what I said about what to do when you go to court, all those things. You can just hit replay. You can even go, fast forward through them. You will often see them. Yeah, thanks, Renee. She'll be feeling better very soon. She went down this time last week after the program, but she'll be back on board next week. Thanks for mentioning my pajamas, George. I know where you live. So we'll be back next week with our CPD program, 12:30. You'll get an email about it this week. You know what that's like when you're a member of AirLab. Usually comes about 10 minutes before the program starts from me, but look forward to it. I look forward to seeing you there, as usual.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
Mission complete. That's how Friday ends in every investigation agency around Australia. with the person in charge, Lisa Cass at CHS, every Friday says to everyone at CHS, all units return home. No, she doesn't. Paul York says it each week, all units return home. No, he doesn't, but that movie says they say it, so we'll take it. Great fun. There's actually some really good learning in that movie. It's called Cold Eyes. It's Korean, and if you do surveillance, watch it. You'll get some really good tips, especially some we featured in this program. Can't wait to see you next week. Hope you all have a great week, people. Hit replay, watch those jobs. If you need to contact me, that's my contact. If you're going to give evidence in court, make sure you understand those tactics and you watch them again and again and again. Tactic perceived is no tactic. See you next week, people.